Alien girl is shocked after detecting a human ship on radar. She thought they were just a myth. Lieutenant Ariana Silverwine's golden eyes narrowed as she studied the holographic display before her. The Battle Alliance cruiser Astral Dawn vibrated beneath her feet as its overtaxed engines struggled to maintain their desperate escape velocity. Her silvery white hair fell forward as she leaned closer to the screen, trying to make sense of the anomalous reading that had just appeared. "Status report," barked High Commander Krelthor from his command chair. The veteran Centaurian's iridescent scales shimmered with tension as his four eyes tracked the pursuing Ravager fleet. His elongated cranial ridges pulsed with a deep purple hue, a clear sign of stress among his species. "Sir, enemy vessels maintaining pursuit course. 12 heavy cruisers closing fast," Ariana reported crisply. "Our engines are redlining at 118% capacity. We can't maintain this speed much longer." The Centaurian commander's secondary heart valve clicked audibly, their species equivalent of a curse. They'd been running for nearly 6 hours, ever since the Ravager fleet had ambushed them near the Krina Nebula. The Astral Dawn was a formidable vessel, but even she couldn't hope to survive against such overwhelming odds. "Keep pushing the engines," Krelthor ordered, his voice resonating with harmonics typical of his race. "Better to burn them out than let those bastards catch us." Ariana nodded grimly and returned her attention to her console. The Ravagers were ruthless invaders who had been terrorizing this sector for months. Their ships were faster, more heavily armed, and operated with a brutal efficiency that had earned them a fearsome reputation. A new contact suddenly appeared on her radar display, approaching from an unexpected vector at incredible speed. Ariana frowned and adjusted her sensors, certain there must be some malfunction. The readings made no sense. "Commander," she called out, "I'm detecting an unknown vessel on an intercept course. But sir, these readings can't be right. It's moving at nearly twice our maximum velocity." "What?" Krelthor's crystalline exoskeleton clinked as he moved to her station. "Show me." Ariana expanded the holographic display. The mysterious vessel was represented by a pulsing red dot, streaking across the tactical plot at impossible speeds. More bewildering still, the ship's energy signature didn't match anything in their database. "Run a full spectral analysis," the commander ordered, his secondary eyes focusing on the readouts. "Could it be some new Ravager design we haven't encountered before?" "Negative, sir. The power signature is completely unlike anything in our records, and the hull composition—" Ariana's voice trailed off as the computer completed its analysis. "Sir, the hull appears to be primarily composed of titanium alloys and carbon composites, but that's impossible." Krelthor's voice dropped to a whisper, all four eyes widening. "Those materials haven't been used in warship construction for centuries. Not since—" The mysterious vessel suddenly opened fire, its weapons blazing to life with devastating effect. But its target wasn't the Astral Dawn. Instead, it systematically began tearing into the pursuing Ravager fleet with terrifying precision. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the unknown ship's energy weapons carved through Ravager armor like tissue paper. One after another, the pursuing vessels exploded or broke apart under the assault. The few that tried to return fire found their shots harmlessly absorbed by some kind of advanced shielding technology. "By the sacred moons," Ariana whispered. "What kind of ship is that?" Commander Krelthor's scales had paled to an ashen gray. "I've seen records of vessels like that in the ancient archives of my people. That's a human warship." "Human?" Ariana's golden eyes widened in disbelief. "But that's impossible. They're just stories, myths from the old wars." "No," Krelthor said softly, his voice resonating with ancestral harmonics. "They were very real and very dangerous. Our histories tell of human battle fleets that could annihilate entire armadas. Ships that could outrun light itself. Warriors who fought with such ferocity that even the Ravagers feared them." "But they vanished," Ariana protested. "Everyone knows that. They disappeared into deep space centuries ago." "Apparently not all of them," the commander replied, as they watched the last Ravager vessel attempt to retreat, only to be cut down by another precise volley. The battle, if it could even be called that, was over in minutes. Where there had been 12 Ravager warships, now there was only floating debris. The mysterious vessel hung in space before them, its dark hull gleaming in the starlight. A communication request suddenly pinged on Ariana's console. The source, the unknown ship. "Sir," she reported, "they're hailing us." Commander Krelthor's scales shifted to a formal diplomatic pattern. "Put them through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a sight that made Ariana's breath catch in her throat. The being on the screen was unmistakably human, but tall, powerfully built, clad in battle-worn armor, bearing faded insignias she didn't recognize. His face bore the subtle scars of countless battles, but his eyes held an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "This is Captain James Sterling of the Earthship Relentless," the human announced, his voice carrying an air of casual authority. "We noticed you were having some trouble with those Ravager bastards. Hope you don't mind us stepping in." The docking procedure between the Astral Dawn and the Relentless proceeded with meticulous precision. Ariana stood at attention in the airlock chamber, her heart racing beneath her perfectly pressed Battle Alliance uniform. Commander Krelthor had personally selected her as liaison officer, a decision that filled her with both pride and trepidation. "Remember, Lieutenant," the commander's harmonics resonated with unusual intensity, "humans are different from any species we know. Their customs, their ways of thinking, they operate on principles that might seem alien even to us." Ariana nodded, though her attention was partially distracted by the subtle vibrations coming through the deck plates as the two ships established their connection. "I've studied all the available historical records, sir." "Records?" Krelthor clicked his secondary heart valve in what might have been amusement. "Stories and legends, mostly. The reality of humans." He paused, his scales shifting to a thoughtful pattern. "Well, you're about to experience that firsthand." The airlock cycled with a soft hiss. Captain Sterling stepped through, his imposing frame filling the doorway. He'd removed his battle armor, revealing a dark uniform that somehow managed to look both formal and dangerous. His presence seemed to alter the very atmosphere of the room. "Captain," Krelthor greeted formally, his scales rippling in the traditional diplomatic pattern. "Welcome aboard the Astral Dawn. Allow me to introduce Lieutenant Ariana Silverwind, who will be serving as your liaison officer." Sterling's steel-gray eyes met Ariana's golden ones, and she felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Lieutenant," he said, his voice carrying that same casual authority she'd heard over the comm. "Looking forward to working with you." The next few hours passed in a blur of formal protocols and tactical discussions. The human captain proved to be surprisingly well-versed in Alliance procedures, though he approached them with what Ariana could only describe as controlled irreverence. "Your ship's impressive," Ariana commented as she led Sterling on a tour of the Astral Dawn. "I've never seen weapon systems like that." "The Relentless is one of a kind," Sterling replied, his lips curving into that slight smirk she was beginning to find disturbingly attractive. "Though I have to say, your engine configuration is interesting. Mind if I take a closer look?" They spent the next hour in engineering, where Sterling displayed an almost uncanny understanding of their technology. His questions were precise, his observations keen, and his occasional suggestions for improvements left the engineering crew in a state of stunned admiration. "You seem to know a lot about Alliance tech," Ariana noted as they made their way to the officers' mess. Sterling's expression turned enigmatic. "We've been watching, learning, waiting for the right moment to re-engage with the galaxy." "Why now?" "The Ravagers," he said simply. "They're becoming a threat we can't ignore anymore." Over dinner, Ariana found herself increasingly fascinated by her human companion. Sterling moved with a predatory grace that seemed at odds with his size, and his laugh, when she managed to provoke it, held a warmth that sent pleasant shivers down her spine. "So, Lieutenant," he said, leaning back in his chair, "tell me about yourself. How does a Silverii end up serving on an Alliance warship?" Ariana blinked in surprise. "You recognize my species?" "Like I said, we've been watching." His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Your people are known for their diplomatic skills and technological aptitude, not usually warriors." "Times change," she replied, matching his gaze. "The galaxy isn't as peaceful as it used to be." "No," he agreed, something darker flickering in his expression. "It isn't." As the evening wore on, Ariana found herself increasingly aware of Sterling's presence. The way he moved, the subtle shifts in his expression, the occasional brush of his hand against hers as they examined tactical displays. Each contact sent sparks of electricity through her body. Later in her quarters, Ariana tried to make sense of her reactions. Silvari were known for their emotional control, their ability to maintain professional distance. Yet something about this human stripped away those carefully constructed barriers. Her communication panel chimed. "Lieutenant?" Sterling's voice came through, carrying a note of something she couldn't quite identify. "Would you mind joining me on the Relentless? There are some tactical systems I'd like your input on." Ariana's heart skipped. "Of course, Captain. I'll be there shortly." As she made her way to the docking port, she couldn't help but wonder if tactical systems were really what Sterling wanted to discuss. The thought sent another pleasant shiver through her body. The Relentless's interior was surprisingly elegant, combining functional efficiency with an aesthetic that spoke of power and precision. Sterling was waiting for her in what appeared to be his private command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing various sector maps. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, though when she looked up, she found him watching her rather than the displays. "Very," she replied, suddenly very aware of how alone they were. The holographic display aboard the Relentless cast an ethereal blue glow across Sterling's command center. Ariana stood beside him, their shoulders nearly touching as they studied the tactical readouts. Intelligence reports had confirmed their worst fears. A massive Ravager fleet was gathering in the Nexus sector. "They're planning something big," Sterling mused, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Look at these formation patterns." Ariana leaned closer, acutely aware of his presence. These energy signatures, they're unlike anything we've seen before. They must have developed new weapons technology. "Or very old technology," Sterling corrected, his voice dropping to a low rumble that sent pleasant vibrations through her body. "These readings are similar to what we faced during the first contact wars." His hand brushed against hers as he adjusted the display, and Ariana felt that now familiar surge of electricity course through her. Over the past week, their working relationship had developed into something more. Every briefing, every tactical planning session, every shared meal was charged with unspoken tension. "Tell me about the wars," she prompted, partly out of genuine curiosity and partly to distract herself from the heat radiating from his body. "Our historical records are incomplete," Sterling's expression darkened momentarily. "Humanity learned the hard way that the galaxy isn't always welcoming to newcomers. We fought, we adapted, we survived." His eyes met hers. "But that's ancient history now." "Is it?" Ariana challenged softly. "Your ship, your tactics, they're still feared across the galaxy. The Ravagers fled at the mere sight of you." A ghost of a smile played across his lips. "Good. Fear keeps the monsters at bay." He turned to face her fully. "Speaking of monsters, we should run a joint combat exercise. See how our ships work together." The next few hours were spent coordinating with both crews. The Relentless and Astral Dawn performed a series of complex maneuvers, their crews learning to anticipate each other's tactics. Sterling's ship moved with impossible grace, executing turns and combat patterns that defied conventional physics. "Impressive," Ariana breathed as she watched the Relentless demonstrate another seemingly impossible feat of navigation. "You haven't seen anything yet," Sterling promised, his voice carrying a hint of something that made her pulse quicken. "Care to try the helm?" Before she could respond, he was guiding her to the pilot's station. His hands settled on her shoulders, positioning her before the controls. The contact sent waves of warmth through her body. "These controls are calibrated for human reflexes," he explained, his breath warm against her ear. "But I think you'll manage." Under his guidance, Ariana began to understand the unique philosophy behind human ship design. It wasn't just about raw power or advanced technology. It was about intuition, about feeling the ship as an extension of oneself. "You're a natural," Sterling commented as she executed a particularly challenging maneuver. His approval sent a flush of pleasure through her that had nothing to do with piloting skills. Later, during the crew rotation, they found themselves alone in one of the Relentless's observation lounges. The vast expanse of space stretched before them, stars twinkling like scattered diamonds on black velvet. "Your people," Ariana began hesitantly. "Where have they been all these centuries?" Sterling was silent for a long moment, preparing, watching, waiting for the right moment to return. He turned to her, his eyes intense. "The galaxy's changing, Ariana. The Ravagers are just the beginning. And humanity plans to fight? We plan to win." His voice carried absolute conviction. "But we'll need allies. Strong ones." The implications of his words hung in the air between them. Ariana found herself moving closer, drawn by some primal force she didn't want to, resist. The Alliance would be foolish to refuse, she said softly. I'm not talking about the Alliance right now. His hand came up to brush a strand of silvery hair from her face. The contact sent shivers down her spine. The ship's communication system chose that moment to interrupt. Captain, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the Nexus sector. Sterling didn't immediately move away. Looks like the Ravagers are making their move sooner than expected. His fingers lingered against her cheek. Ready to show them what our ships can do together? The double meaning in his words wasn't lost on her. Always, as she replied, her voice husky with promise. As they made their way back to the bridge, Ariana felt a profound shift in their relationship. The attraction between them had evolved into something deeper, more powerful. And as they prepared to face the gathering storm together, she realized that the legends about humans hadn't done them justice. They weren't just warriors or survivors. They were force of nature, passionate, intense, and utterly captivating. And James Sterling embodied everything that made his species both fascinating and dangerous. The tactical displays showed the Ravager fleet moving into attack formation. But for the first time since this crisis began, Ariana felt no fear. With Sterling beside her, with their ships working as one, she knew they were about to make history of their own. Battle stations, Sterling commanded, his voice carrying that mix of authority and excitement that made her heart race. Let's show them why humans aren't just legends anymore. The Ravager fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic locusts, their ships' angular profiles bristling with weapon arrays. Ariana's tactical display lit up with dozens of threat indicators, each representing a vessel that dwarfed the Astral Dawn in size and firepower. They've deployed in a Thanatos formation, Ariana reported from her station aboard the Relentless, where she'd chosen to remain for the coming battle. I've never seen them use this pattern before. Sterling's expression hardened as he studied the enemy formation. I have. During the Exodus Wars, his hand rested on the back of her chair, the casual intimacy of the gesture contrasting with the tension of the moment. They're trying to trap us in a gravitational crossfire. The Ravager ships began moving with mechanical precision, their formations spreading out like a deadly flower, blooming in the void. Energy readings spiked across Ariana's displays as their weapons charged. All hands battle stations, Sterling commanded, his voice carrying that peculiar human quality that seemed to bypass the brain and speak directly to the primitive parts of consciousness. Time to remind the galaxy why humans were feared. The Relentless surged forward, its advanced engines humming with power that seemed to defy physics itself. Beside them, the Astral Dawn moved in perfect synchronization, their earlier practice sessions paying off as the two ships executed maneuvers that looked impossible on paper. First wave incoming, Ariana announced as the Ravagers opened fire. The void lit up with energy weapons and plasma torpedoes. Sterling's response was immediate and devastating. The Relentless's weapon systems came alive, unleashing a barrage that cut through the enemy's shields like they weren't there. 3 Ravager ships exploded in rapid succession, their destruction creating gaps in the enemy formation. Now that's what I'd call a proper hello, Sterling grinned, the battle light in his eyes making him look more predatory than ever. Ready to show them what else we can do? Ariana felt her pulse quicken at his tone. Always. The next few minutes were a symphony of destruction as the Human Alliance Joint Force tore into the Ravager fleet. The Relentless moved with impossible grace, its advanced technology making it seem more like a living creature than a machine. The Astral Dawn complemented its movements perfectly, their combined firepower devastating the enemy ranks. Sir, one of Sterling's officers called out, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the enemy flagship. Before anyone could react, a massive energy wave erupted from the Ravager vessel, expanding outward like a ripple in space itself. The Astral Dawn shields flared as the wave hit them, but held. The Relentless, however, seemed completely unaffected. Phase shift technology, Sterling explained, noting Ariana's surprised expression. Another little trick we developed during our absence. You're full of surprises, she replied, admiring how the ambient light played across his features as he focused on the battle. "You have no idea," he murmured, his voice carrying a promise that made her skin tingle, despite the chaos around them. The battle continued to rage, but it was clear the Ravagers hadn't expected this level of resistance. Their legendary formation began to break apart as more ships fell to the combined Human Alliance assault. During a brief lull in the fighting, Sterling turned to Ariana. "Your people thought we were myths," he said softly. "Stories to frighten children. But we were always out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to return." "Why now?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "Because the galaxy needs us again." His hand found hers in the dim light of the bridge. "And because some things are worth fighting for." The moment was interrupted by a massive explosion as the Ravager flagship finally succumbed to their combined assault. The remaining enemy vessels began to retreat, their formation completely shattered. "Should we pursue?" Ariana asked, though she was more focused on the warmth of Sterling's hand than the fleeing enemy. "Let them run," he replied. "Let them tell others what they saw here today. Let them spread the word that humanity has returned." The aftermath of the battle brought a different kind of tension to the bridge. As damage reports came in and repair crews began their work, Ariana found herself increasingly aware of Sterling's presence. The way he moved, the authority in his voice as he gave orders, the occasional glances he cast in her direction, everything about him seemed designed to draw her in. Later, in his private quarters, as they discussed the battle's implications over a drink of actual Earth whiskey, Sterling finally addressed what had been building between them. "You know," he said, his voice carrying that rough edge that sent shivers down her spine, "humans have another reputation besides being warriors." "Oh?" Ariana managed, very aware of how close they were sitting. "We're known for being—" He paused, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Passionate about what we want." The air between them seemed to crackle with electricity. All the tension, all the unspoken desires of the past weeks crystallized in that moment. What followed was a revelation of its own, a discovery that the legends about human passion were, if anything, understated. News of humanity's return spread through the galaxy like a shockwave. The Battle Alliance's central command was buzzing with activity as reports flooded in from every sector. Ariana watched the holographic displays from her new permanent station aboard the Relentless, where she now spent most of her time, both professionally and personally. "The Centaurian High Council is requesting an immediate diplomatic summit," she reported, scanning through the incoming messages. "And the Arcturus Confederation has offered military support." Sterling stood behind her, his presence both comforting and electrifying. After their night together following the battle, their relationship had evolved into something that defied conventional alliance protocols. But then again, nothing about humans ever seemed to fit within established norms. "They're scared," he observed, his hand resting casually on her shoulder. "Not of the Ravagers, of us." "Can you blame them?" Ariana turned to face him, admiring how the starlight from the viewport played across his features. "You've been gone for centuries, and your first public act was to obliterate an elite Ravager fleet like they were target practice." "Good." His smile held that predatory edge she'd come to adore. "Fear keeps the peace better than any treaty." The ship's communications system chimed with an incoming priority message. Commander Krell-Thor's holographic image materialized before them, his scales shifting in what Ariana recognized as a pattern of both respect and concern. "Captain Sterling, Lieutenant Silverwyn," he greeted formally. "The Alliance Council has convened an emergency session. Your presence is requested at Central Command." Sterling's expression remained neutral, but Ariana felt the subtle tension in his body. "When?" Immediately, Krell-Thor's secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of anxiety. "There are concerns about humanity's intentions." After the transmission ended, Sterling turned to Ariana with a mischievous glint in his eye. "Ready to make history?" The journey to Central Command took several hours, even with the Relentless's advanced drive systems. They spent the time in Sterling's quarters, ostensibly preparing their report, though their proximity led to several pleasant distractions. "You never told me," Ariana murmured as they lay together in the aftermath of one such distraction, "where humanity really went all those years ago." Sterling traced patterns on her bare shoulder, his touch sending shivers through her body. "We didn't go anywhere. We were always here, watching, waiting, building our strength. For what? For this moment. He pulled her closer, his skin wonderfully warm against hers. The galaxy's changing, Ariana. The Ravagers are just the beginning. We knew eventually we'd need to step out of the shadows. The central command station loomed before them, a massive structure that served as the heart of Alliance operations. As they docked, Ariana felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Their relationship wasn't exactly a secret, but facing the Council together would make it official in ways that couldn't be ignored. The Council chamber was packed with representatives from every major species in the Alliance. Ariana noticed how they all fell silent as Sterling entered, his commanding presence drawing every eye in the room. She walked beside him, her head held high, aware of the whispers that followed them. Captain James Sterling, the Council President, a venerable Andorian, announced, "You stand before us as the first officially recognized representative of humanity in over 3 centuries. And hopefully not the last," Sterling replied with that characteristic confidence that made Ariana's heart race. The session that followed was intense. Questions about humanity's whereabouts, their intentions, their technology, all delivered with varying degrees of suspicion and fear. Sterling handled each query with diplomatic skill that surprised even Ariana, though she noticed how he carefully avoided revealing too much about humanity's true capabilities. "The Ravagers are a threat to us all," he declared. "Humanity offers its strength to the Alliance, but we do so as equals, not subordinates." The Council chambers erupted in heated discussion. Ariana felt Sterling's hand find hers beneath the podium, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that felt both defiant and right. Later, during a recess, they found a moment alone in one of the station's observation lounges. The vast expanse of space stretched before them, but Ariana was more focused on how the artificial lighting highlighted the strong lines of the Sterling's face. "They're going to accept the Alliance," she said confidently. "They'd be fools not to." "They will," he agreed, pulling her close. "But that's not what I'm thinking about right now." His kiss was passionate, possessive, making her forget about politics and protocols. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Ariana saw something in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "About how the legends never mentioned that the most dangerous thing about humans isn't our weapons or our ships." His voice dropped to that low rumble that never failed to affect her. "It's our capacity to fall completely or irrevocably in love." The integration of human forces into the Battle Alliance proceeded with remarkable speed. Within weeks of the Council's approval, joint training exercises became commonplace, and human technology began revolutionizing Alliance military doctrine. At the center of it all were the Relentless and its now famous command team, the human captain and his Silveri liaison officer. Ariana stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Human Alliance Integration Center, watching as a fleet of mixed vessels performed intricate maneuvers against the backdrop of a crimson nebula. The sight of human and Alliance ships working in perfect harmony filled her with pride. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Sterling's voice came from behind her, followed by the warmth of his body as he wrapped his arms around her waist. "Though not as breathtaking as the one I'm looking at." "Smooth talker," she teased, leaning back against his chest. The diplomatic corps would be shocked to hear the legendary human captain using such cliché lines. "Only with you," he murmured against her ear, sending pleasant shivers down her spine. "Besides, I have a reputation to maintain. Can't let everyone know I'm actually capable of being romantic." Their relationship had become something of an open secret within the Alliance. While some traditionalists grumbled about species mixing, most saw them as a symbol of successful integration, living proof that humans could be more than the warriors of legend. "The Arcturus delegation arrives tomorrow," Ariana reminded him, though she was finding it hard to focus with his lips trailing down her neck. "We should review the protocols." "Already done," he interrupted, turning her to face him, "which means we have the entire evening free." The look in his eyes made her breath catch. Even after all their time together, the raw intensity of human desire still amazed her. Her people were known for their reserved nature, their careful control of emotions. But Sterling had awakened something primal in her, something that matched his own passionate nature. Their evening plans were interrupted by an urgent communication from Alliance Command. A delegation of Silveri elders had arrived unexpectedly, requesting an immediate audience with Ariana. They're not happy about us, she sighed as they made their way to the meeting chamber. My people have traditional views about relationships. Sterling's expression hardened slightly. Want me to come with you? No, she smiled, touching his face. This is something I need to handle alone. Besides, you have that tactical briefing with the Centaurian admirals. The meeting was exactly as uncomfortable as she'd expected. The elders spoke of tradition, of maintaining racial purity, of her duty to her people. But as Ariana listened to their arguments, she felt only certainty in her choices. With all respect, honored ones, she finally interrupted. Humans aren't the savages of legend. They're passionate, yes, but also capable of depths of emotion our people have forgotten. James Sterling has shown me that. You speak of emotion, the eldest said disapprovingly, when you should speak of duty. My duty is to the Alliance, Ariana replied firmly, and humanity's return makes us stronger. My relationship with Captain Sterling proves that our species can work together, can understand each other on the deepest levels. Later, she found Sterling in his quarters aboard the Relentless, poring over tactical displays. He looked up as she entered, his expression softening immediately. How did it go? Instead of answering, she crossed the room and kissed him with an intensity that surprised them both. When they finally parted, she saw the question in his eyes. They wanted me to choose between you and my people's traditions, she explained. It wasn't even a choice. His response was to pull her close, his touch conveying everything words couldn't. They spent the night proving that love transcended species, that passion knew no boundaries of race or tradition. The next morning, as they prepared to receive the Arcturus delegation, Ariana caught sight of their reflection in the viewport, the human captain and his silvery partner, standing together as equals. She remembered how she'd once thought humans were myths, dangerous legends to frighten children. What are you thinking about? Sterling asked, adjusting his formal uniform. About how wrong the legends were, she replied. They painted humans as fearsome warriors, unstoppable in battle, but they never mentioned your capacity for love, for changing the universe not just through force, but through understanding. He smiled that special smile that was only for her. Maybe that's the real reason we stayed hidden so long. We were waiting for the right moment, the right people to show our true nature too. The day's ceremonies went perfectly. The Arcturus representatives were suitably impressed by the Joint Fleet demonstrations, and the formal dinner that followed was a model of interspecies cooperation. But through it all, Ariana found her attention drawn to Sterling, to the way he moved, the authority in his voice, the occasional heated glances they exchanged. That night, as they lay together in the afterglow of passion, Ariana realized something profound. The legends had been right about one thing. Humans were indeed capable of changing the galaxy. But they did it not just through their superior technology or combat skills, but through their ability to love without boundaries, to embrace differences, to see beauty in the unknown. You're thinking too hard, Sterling murmured, pulling her closer. Just realizing that some myths are better than reality, she replied. But some realities are better than any myth. The announcement of Sterling and Ariana's formal union ceremony sent ripples through both human and alliance societies. It would be the first officially recognized partnership between a human and a Silverii, marking a new chapter in galactic relations. The Relentless had been chosen as the venue, a decision that raised eyebrows among traditionalists, but felt perfectly right to the couple. Ariana stood in her quarters aboard the ship, examining her reflection in the mirror. She wore a stunning combination of traditional Silverii ceremonial robes and human military formal wear, the fusion of styles symbolic of their groundbreaking union. Having second thoughts, Commander Krelthor asked from the doorway, his scales showing a pattern of paternal concern. Not even for a moment, she replied, adjusting the ceremonial sash. Though I admit, I'm curious about the human tradition James mentioned, and something about carrying me across a threshold. The commander's scales shifted to amusement. Humans have always had interesting customs. Speaking of which, the human delegation has arrived, including some very high-ranking officials who were supposedly hidden all these years. The arrival of the human leadership had caused quite a stir. Their ships had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, emerging from what they called dark space, regions of the galaxy that had been considered uninhabitable. Each vessel was more impressive than the last, showcasing technology that made even their advanced alliance counterparts seem primitive. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called, expecting another well-wisher. Instead, a tall human woman in an elaborate uniform stepped in. Her presence commanded immediate attention, and Ariana recognized her from the briefings. Admiral Sarah Chadwick, one of humanity's highest-ranking officers. "Lieutenant Silverwind," the Admiral greeted warmly. "Or should I say the future Mrs. Sterling?" "Just Ariana, please," she replied, noting how the Admiral's eyes held the same intensity she'd come to love in James. "I wanted to speak with you privately," Chadwick said, dismissing Krelthor with a polite nod. "About what it means to be part of the human family." What followed was a fascinating discussion about human culture, their time in hiding, and their hopes for the future. Chadwick spoke of how humanity had used their isolation to advance not just technologically, but culturally and philosophically. "We needed to evolve beyond our warrior nature," the Admiral explained, "to become something more than the legends painted us to be." James was one of the first to truly understand this. It's why he was chosen for first contact. "Chosen?" Ariana asked, intrigued. Chadwick smiled mysteriously. "We'd been watching the Alliance for decades, waiting for the right moment, the right people. When we saw you that first day, tracking our ship despite our best stealth technology, we knew we'd found something special." The implications of this revelation stunned Ariana. "You mean nothing about your first meeting was accidental," Chadwick confirmed, "though I don't think anyone anticipated quite how special that meeting would become." Later, as she prepared to walk down the aisle they'd created in the Relentless's main hangar, Ariana reflected on how far they'd come, from believing humans were myths to becoming living proof of their capacity for love and integration. Sterling waited at the end of the aisle, wearing a dress uniform that combined human military tradition with Silvarii ceremonial elements. His expression when he saw her made her heart race just as it had that first day on the bridge. The ceremony itself was a beautiful blend of both cultures. Traditional Silvarii, light-binding rituals merged seamlessly with human vows of devotion. When Sterling kissed her, the assembled crowd, human and alien alike, erupted in cheers. The celebration that followed was equally groundbreaking. Human officers danced with Alliance diplomats, sharing stories and customs. Ariana watched as centuries of separation began to melt away, replaced by genuine curiosity and warmth. "Happy?" Sterling asked, pulling her close as they swayed to a mixture of human and Silvari music. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, resting her head against his chest. "Though I'm still processing what Admiral Chadwick told me about our first meeting," he chuckled, the sound rumbling pleasantly against her ear. "I was supposed to maintain professional distance, observe and report. Instead, you fell in love with the alien who spotted your supposedly undetectable ship." "Best failure of my career," he murmured, capturing her lips in a kiss that promised much more to come. The reception continued late into the night, but eventually they made their way to their newly combined quarters. Sterling had insisted on carrying her across the threshold, a human tradition he refused to skip. "Welcome home," he whispered, setting her down in their shared space, which perfectly reflected their merged lives, human efficiency meeting Silvari aesthetics. What followed was a night that proved once again that human passion and Silvari grace created something magical when combined. 6 months after their historic union, Sterling and Ariana found themselves at the forefront of a cultural revolution. The Integration Academy they'd established aboard the Relentless had become a beacon for human-alien cooperation, attracting couples and individuals from across the galaxy who sought to bridge the divide between species. Ariana stood at the helm of the newly upgraded bridge, monitoring the latest batch of mixed-species training exercises. The modifications they'd made allowed for seamless operation by both human and the alien crew members, a testament to their successful integration efforts. "The Centaurian human team is showing remarkable improvement," she noted as Sterling approached, his presence still sending pleasant shivers down her spine even after all this time. "They're not the only one," he replied, sliding an arm around her waist. "Have you seen the latest statistics? Human-alien partnerships have increased by 300% since our ceremony." The bridge crew, a mix of various species working alongside humans, pointedly pretended not to notice their commander's display of affection. Such scenes had become commonplace aboard the Relentless, where traditional protocols had given way to a more relaxed, yet highly efficient atmosphere. Admiral Chadwick's report just came in, Sterling continued, his voice dropping to a more private tone. The Council has approved our proposal for the Joint Species Command Academy. Ariana's golden eyes lit up with excitement. This project had been their dream, a facility dedicated to training mixed species command teams, building on the success of their own partnership. When do we start? Immediately, he grinned, pulling up a holographic display. They're giving us the Arcturus station as a base of operations, full autonomy, direct council backing, and, he paused for effect, quarters with a view of the nebula. Their shared quarters aboard the Relentless had become something of a legend. A perfect blend of human practicality and Silverai aesthetics. The prospect of designing a new space together made Ariana's heart race with anticipation. Later that evening, as they prepared for a diplomatic reception celebrating the Academy's approval, Ariana watched Sterling dressed in his formal uniform. The sight of him still affected her as strongly as it had that first day. You're staring, he observed with that knowing smirk that never failed to quicken her pulse. Just admiring the view, she replied, adjusting her own uniform, a unique design that combined Alliance formal wear with human military elements. Though I'm looking forward to getting you out of that uniform later, his eyes darkened with promise. Careful, Lieutenant. We have a reception to attend first. The diplomatic gathering was held in the Relentless's newly constructed observation lounge, where the stars seemed close enough to touch through the vast windows. Representatives from dozens of species mingled with human officials, their interactions marked by genuine warmth rather than mere political courtesy. Look at them, Ariana murmured to Sterling, as they watched a human officer teaching a group of alien diplomats an Earth dance. A year ago, humans were considered myths. Now they're leading dance lessons. We've come a long way from you spotting us on radar, he agreed, pulling her closer. Though I still maintain that was impossible. Our stealth systems were perfect. Clearly not perfect enough, she teased, enjoying the mock outrage on his face. Their playful banter was interrupted by the arrival of a young Andorian human couple, clearly nervous about approaching the famous pair. Captain Lieutenant, the human male began, we wanted to thank you. Your example, it gave us courage to follow our hearts. Ariana felt Sterling's pride and joy matching her own as they spoke with the couple, sharing their experiences and offering guidance. More such conversations followed throughout the evening, each one reinforcing the importance of their pioneering role. As their reception wound down, they found themselves alone in their favorite spot, a quiet corner of the observation lounge with a spectacular view of the galaxy. Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed, Ariana said softly, leaning back against Sterling's chest. From thinking humans were just stories to this. Having second thoughts, he asked, though his tone was playful. She turned in his arms, meeting his gaze with intensity. Never, though I am thinking about testing out our new quarters at the Academy. His response was to pull her into a kiss that made her forget about diplomatic protocols and public settings. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, the look in his eyes promised much more to come. What do you say we skip the rest of this reception? He suggested, his voice carrying that rough edge that never failed to affect her. Their departure caused knowing smiles among the remaining guests. The passion between the human captain and his silvery partner had become as legendary as their professional achievements. In their quarters, as clothing gave way to more intimate activities, Ariana marveled at how their relationship continued to evolve and deepen. Each touch, each moment together seemed to forge stronger bonds between them. I love you, Sterling murmured against her skin, his words carrying the weight of absolute truth. My impossible radar, defeating alien. I love you too, she replied, losing herself in his embrace. My mythical human warrior. 5 years after that fateful radar detection that changed the galaxy forever, Ariana stood at the graduation ceremony of the Joint Species Command Academy's first class. The massive amphitheater of Arcturus Station buzzed with excitement as representatives from over 30 species gathered to witness this historic moment. Sterling, now Admiral Sterling, stood beside her on the elevated platform, his presence still sending thrills through her body after all these years. His hand found hers as they watched the mixed species crews file in, each wearing uniforms that combined elements of their respective cultures with the new unified fleet design. Remember when you thought humans were just myths? He whispered, his breath warm against her ear. Remember when you thought your stealth systems were perfect? She countered, earning that familiar smirk that still made her heart race. The ceremony marked more than just the graduation of new officers. It represented the culmination of their shared vision, a truly integrated galactic society where species boundaries had become meaningless in the face of shared purpose and understanding. Admiral Chadwick approached the podium, her presence commanding immediate attention. 5 years ago, a Silvari lieutenant spotted an impossible ship on her radar. Today, we celebrate not just the graduation of our first joint command class, but the birth of a new era in galactic history. Ariana felt Sterling's pride matching her own as they watched their students receive their commissions. Each graduate represented countless hours of work, challenges overcome, and barriers broken. More than that, many of them had found love across species lines, following the path that Ariana and Sterling had pioneered. After the ceremony, they retreated to their private quarters in the station's executive wing. The space had evolved over the years, becoming a perfect reflection of their merged lives. Human military efficiency blended seamlessly with Silvari artistic elements, creating something entirely new and uniquely theirs. "Have you told them yet?" Sterling asked, pulling her close as they stood before the panoramic window overlooking the nebula. "Not yet," she replied, placing his hand over her slightly rounded belly. "Though I think Admiral Chadwick suspects, she keeps giving me these knowing looks." The prospect of their child, the first human Silvari hybrid in recorded history, had initially caused concern among medical experts. But human genetic engineering combined with Silvari biological adaptation had made the impossible possible once again. "She'll be beautiful," Sterling murmured, his touch sending waves of warmth through her body, "just like her mother." "And stubborn like her father," Ariana added with a laugh. "The medical team is already amazed by her development. They say she's showing characteristics of both species in perfect harmony." Their moment was interrupted by a priority communication from Fleet Command. A new species had made contact, requesting to join the integration initiative. More significantly, they mentioned being inspired by the legends of the human Silvari Union. "We've become myths ourselves," Ariana realized with amazement. "Better than the old myths," Sterling replied, pulling her into a kiss that still held all the passion of their first embrace. "Our story is real." Later that night, as they lay together in the afterglow of their love, Ariana reflected on how far they'd come. From that first shocking moment when she detected his ship, through all their adventure and challenges, to this moment of perfect contentment. "What are you thinking about?" Sterling asked, tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "About how some myths become reality," she replied, snuggling closer, "and how reality can be better than any myth." The next morning, they stood together on the observation deck, watching as the first ships of the new species arrived. Their crews would join the next class at the Academy, adding their unique perspectives and abilities to the growing tapestry of integrated galactic society. "Ready for the next chapter?" Sterling asked, his arm around her waist. "With you?" "Always," she replied, her golden eyes meeting his with all the love and passion that had started with a simple radar detection. As they prepared to welcome the newcomers, Ariana thought about how their story would be told in years to come. How future generations would speak of the human captain and the Silvari lieutenant who proved that love knows no boundaries. Not even those between species. The legends of humanity's return would forever be intertwined with their love story, proving that the greatest myths are those that lead to even greater realities. And as their child grew within her, representing the physical embodiment of their union, Ariana knew that their legacy would continue to shape the galaxy for generations to come. "I love you," she whispered, feeling his arms tighten around her. "I love you too," he replied, his voice carrying that same intensity that had first captured her heart. "My myth-breaking, radar-detecting miracle." Together, they faced the future they had helped create, a future where myths became reality, where love transcended species, and where their story would inspire countless others to follow their hearts across the stars.